Minutes, looks like.
I'm gonna do it right now. All right, I'll call this first meeting of 2021 to order of the Board of Zoning Appeals. The first item on the agenda is the election of officers. We'll start off with the chairman. The way this will operate is somebody will open up the floor for nominations. If whoever gets nominated, if there's one person nominated, then we'll vote on that person. If there's more than one person nominated, we'll vote on those people in the order that they were nominated. If the first person nominated gets the majority, then that's it, they win. If the first person does not get it, then we'll go on and keep voting until that person is elected. So, that being said, are there any nominations for chairperson for the Board of Zoning Appeals?
I'd like to nominate Jim Codner. He hasn't had much chance because of the few meetings we've had to really be our chairman, so I'd like to see him continue.
Yeah, I second that.
Second's not necessary, but I'm sure it's appreciated. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so Mr. Connor was nominated for the chairperson. There were no other nominations. Let's just go ahead and do a vote. Please give me an aye and a show of hands. All those in favor of Mr. Connor being, looks like it's unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Connor.
Thank you. Thank you, fellow members. I appreciate the vote. I think it's,
You've done a good job, so
There you go.
that's your reward.
There's the sign sheets. They track with,
track with all these.
I believe there's only one person signed up. And then, so your vice chair and secretary are next.
Okay, we need to elect a vice chair, please. The same rules would apply. Could I have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Gwen.
Gwen doesn't have time.
This is vice chairman now. Probably not tremendous time drain.
You know what Gwen does for a living. Gwen does not have time.
Ms. Fowler is not required to take the nomination.
So Bill, how about if I nominate you?
I was just here before Jim. I just think we should give other people a chance.
Okay, well,
I would nominate John Egar. John has not had the opportunity to be official up here, and I think he would do a good job.
Is that
Any other nominations?
any other?
Okay. All in favor of Mr. Egar? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Congratulations to you also.
We open the floor for nominations for secretary. In the past, that has been Mr. Chapman.
I would move Mr. Chapman continue as secretary.
Are there any other nominations?
Anyone?
No one's a glutton for punishment, John. All right. Adam.
Understood.
Okay. All in favor of Mr. Chapman, please raise your hand. It's unanimous, Mr. Chapman.
Awesome.
You got it. Okay, so we'll move into hearing the business before the, excuse me, we need to approve the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? I'd entertain a motion
I
to
would
approve the
move the
minutes.
acceptance, the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any changes or any?
Didn't see anything.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting? Please raise
Aye.
your hand. Gwen, are you okay or no? You need some time?
the only thing that's missing was I recused myself, and Adam's covered that, so it's not in this, but it will be.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, we all okay then? Please raise your hands.
Yep.
Okay, approved unanimously.
I'm gonna have to abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay. So we have 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Okay, staff has provided us with a calendar.
If I may, yeah, okay.
Yes. Staff has provided us with a calendar. Did everyone see that?
Yes. I would move acceptance of the proposed calendar.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Any problems with any of these dates? Any issues with?
Do they conflict with, Adam, I didn't actually check them against the calendar, but do any of them conflict with any holidays or anything to your knowledge?
No,
I don't think so.
no, we went through them several times.
That's our secretary's job.
Just checking.
I believe they are clean. If they're not, we'll certainly address them at that point in time.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor, please raise your hand,
Aye.
say aye. Unanimous? Okay, let me see. Brief statement about rules and procedures to citizens and applicants present, how these hearings are going to operate. Applicant will get 5 minutes to present their request. And they will address the needs of their property and why they think they deserve the variance in question. Staff will have an opportunity to provide any input or any comments. We'll then open it up to citizen comments. Each citizen who wants to speak can present their views, get 5 minutes. And I encourage anyone, I see people out here, so if you have something to say, please do come up. If you didn't sign up, you'll still have an opportunity after I've called for all the people who did sign up. So please don't leave here without stating, if your opinion or your view has not been presented, please come up and state your piece. We're very interested in hearing what you have to say. We can only base our decision based on whatever's presented here tonight. It's not like we bring all kinds of data and information that allows us to make a decision. We have to listen to you folks and make a decision based on what you say. After citizen comments, the applicant will have a chance to rebuff any statements that were made, or any questions, they be able to answer any questions that were raised, and generally clarify their request based on citizen comments. We'll then have a vote. Adam, could you show us the criteria that we look at for each variance request?
Certainly. One moment here. Computer restart. There you go.
Okay, so for folks who haven't been here before, the highlighted items there are what we have to consider. We have to ask ourselves those 4 questions based on all the information we've been given. So if you do address your comments to those kinds of questions, those specific questions, it'll be very helpful. I guess the only thing I have, Adam, before we get going, can you show us a map of the area? The issue is variances to specific overlays. And if we could look at where those overlays are, and if you could explain what the issues are with those overlays. Begging the board's permission, I'm asking questions here. I hope it's okay with the board members that we do this right now. Everyone okay with that? Look at the map and whatnot. So it would be helpful.
These are the parcels right here that are being shown by the applicant here. They are in the I-85 overlay, specifically the Carolina Gateway, which does have some additional regulations above and beyond what is in our county sign ordinance.
Okay, and that's delineated by the, is it the blue line?
If you can tell, it's a little bit difficult to see, but it's this.
Okay, it's not the green line then, it's the blue line.
That's correct. So for instance, this is Yoder's buildings plan right here, exit 1 to what would be 3 and 4.
So, yeah, the question is, the property is at exit 4. Okay, does the board have any questions about what we're looking at?
What is the depth of the blue line, the difference between I-85 and the blue line roughly?
It's 1,000 feet on either side.
1,000 feet on either side?
Okay. Does the board have any questions then about what we're looking at here? Okay, good. Okay, the first variance, variance request for application number VA-20-06A, related to number of freestanding signs located at 132 Grubbs Road, Fairplay, South Carolina, 29643. The property is TMS number 341000401. And the particular issue is the overlay permits only one sign per property, and the request is for two. Am I stating that correctly, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, sir.
This time, would the applicant like to state his case?
Sure.
Please.
Can I put my papers on the podium? Okay, great, thank you. My name is Bob Cash. I'm the civil engineer consultant for the applicant, being Speedway. They are looking to develop a new Speedway convenience center, which will be for both vehicles of cars and truck traffic. There would be a facility that is for filling gas. They're not really a truck stop of any kind. It's really a filling station with a convenience store for people to come and go on the site. The reason we chose the site is because it's conveniently located at an interchange. It's actually in a corner of an interchange would be the southbound exit area, as well as on Whitfield Road. And then it's very close to the highway. That corridor obviously is highly traveled, and it's very, it'd be a very good business opportunity to be in that section. So for Speedway and for their branding, they have particular signs that they are accustomed to putting along interstate highways for it to be seen not only from long distances, but also to be able to then locate the business once you exit the road. The high-rise sign that we'd be asking for is a sign that would be then for on the travel lanes on I-85, either southbound or northbound, that as you're traveling and entering the area, to know where in proximity that business is located. Once you exit the ramp, then for a matter of convenience and to understand where the business is, you need a lower level sign that then points in the direction of where that business is and how far and where to start heading for the entrance. A single sign would be where we have to make a decision on whether that's the high-rise or whether that's the goalpost sign. And without either, then the business would be would have a disadvantage of being seen and being then visited by travelers up and down the highway. The competitors in that same intersection have high-rise signs. They have higher goalpost signs. They would have an advantage of the visibility and the readily recognition of where that business is located. The property itself has heavy topography. It is highly wooded. So as you're traveling down the highway, there's a curve in the road, which just adds to the difficulty of seeing the site as you're traveling down the road. We have done a sign study where we raise balloons in the air to know where, from different heights of visibility as you travel down the road. And both north and southbound lane are highly challenged for a height, let alone of even a location of where that sign would be. If you would limit it to just a goalpost sign, you'd never see the site. If you limit to just a high-rise sign, you may be able to see it, but once you exit the site, then you have no idea where the business is at. SCDOT requires that the first entrance to a business off an exit ramp be 750 feet at a minimum from that exit ramp. So that puts it about almost 2/3 of the way up the property to almost Grubbs Road. It would be our first entrance. So the difficulty of someone traveling north or southbound, first of all, making a decision, this is where I want to stop off to either get gas or pick up a convenience item or to just basically hit the restroom. you couldn't make that decision from a distance away. You'd have to make it last second if you even knew if the business was there. Once you leave the exit, then you'd be looking left or right to see where the business is located. The business would be, the entrance, nearest entrance would be at least 750 feet from the southbound lane. In addition, from the northbound lane would be the whole interchange depth itself. You can see that it's pretty wide in there. So to locate the property and then the business is problematic in itself, just from a number of signs standpoint. The questions of describe the extraordinary and exceptional conditions, size, shape, topography that pertains to the project. These are the items that I've just gone through, and that the two signs would be a minimum of way of locating the property. Are the circumstances affecting the property the result of actions by the applicant or the owner? It's really a factor of the property geometry, the geometry of the interchange, the topography of heavy undulation, as well as trees that are grown there. We don't want to cut all the trees down so you can just see the site. That's not what we want to do. So that's to answer that question. Describe the ways in which the applicant of the requirements, describe the ways in which application of the requirements of the ordinance effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. I believe that any business that would ever want to be developed in that corner would be asking the same variance. Because even if you're looking for a fast food restaurant, if you're looking for another type of convenience store, they also would be looking for a high-rise sign and a location sign on the site and that'd be very typical up and down I-85. So even just the general recognition of what you're expecting when you get off the highway, or even when you're traveling towards the intersection, what you expect. Will the proposed variance result in activity that will not be a substance detriment to the adjacent uses or to the general or the public good? Character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Explain. Speedway CFL businesses are commonly located on interstate interchanges. They have at least 50 of these very similar type of stations up and down I-85 within South Carolina in itself. The business service includes refilling of the vehicles and convenience merchandise, having both a high-rise sign and a site driveway goalpost are very typical of this type of business for not only Speedway across the nation, but also for competitors. The proposed monuments, signs, variance will not cause adverse impact on the surrounding property values. The high-rise sign would be located along the right-of-way of I-85. It'd be away from any other adjacent property. The goalpost would be located at the front of our property on Whitfield Road, away from adjacent properties as well. And it's very typical of the monuments configured that are already existing along I-85. I'll take any questions that you may have.
I have
Yes,
one
sir.
question. Have you looked at the possibility of placing your business on the DOT signs that are typically shown on expressways, that food at this exit, gas at this exit, hotels, that kind of
You
thing?
do, but we feel that even though those would be there, someone who would be traveling would be looking visually to which side of the road they're going to have to be getting off the exit, as well as when they got to the intersection, which way do I go? I know I do. When I get there, I'm looking for which way do I got to go to get that. And if I'm at that intersection and I have a difficulty of understanding where I want to go, and I see an alternate as being a competitor, I'll probably go there, only because it's convenient to go to. So that we would be in an adverse situation from a competitive standpoint if we didn't have this kind of signage. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Is the signage you're looking for consistent with every other race
Yes,
convenience store that we would have found or looked at? It'd be very much the same?
yes. Yes, it is.
So there's nothing you're asking for that's different than the norm?
No, this is very much of a standard that Speedway puts. Obviously, they do different varying heights based on the topography and needs, but yes, this is a very similar, a very usual sign, and it's a brand name sign that they use all over the country.
Will your high sign be about the same height as the ones that are nearby?
Yes, in terms of total elevation, yes.
Are they the same size?
I didn't measure them, but I believe it's very close. And from a topography standpoint, they're going to be about the same elevation because some has the advantage of being up on top of the hill, and the other ones will be more on a downhill side.
Do you make adjustments to keep them at about the same height?
Correct. And the adjustment to the height was based on the tree level. I hope you've got copies of the science study, but in there, you'll see the balloons aren't even visible for even the 200 feet until about a half mile from the interchange.
What's the probability that the trees will grow to obscure?
They're very mature trees. I wouldn't believe they'd grow much more than what they are now.
We'll find that. So
Sorry?
If I may, gentlemen,
Mr.
just
Secretary.
kind of skew in here. So the rationale while Mr. Cash and I worked together to break this up into 4 separate hearings, although it's all about the same stuff, was so that we could address each of the aspects of it individually. That way, we're not all, let's just say, fixated on the height of it, when there are other items to talk about. So this first hearing is about the number of signs. And if I can just clarify here is that when you all vote now, if you all vote to allow a second sign, it won't be the high-rise sign or the goalpost sign. What you'll be voting on, just strictly voting on, kind of with that lens, is that 2 signs would be permitted that are within county regulations. That's what will be voted upon, is that if you all choose to vote in favor of this, they'll get 2 signs that meet current county regulations. They'll be no higher than 10 feet, they'll be up to 75 square feet. They'll be 5 to 10 feet off the edge of the right of way, depending on where they're going to put it. As we go through this list, then we can address that. If you all approve a second sign, you all can say then that second sign, one of them will be a high rise, and then further down the list is the goalpost. Well, they're asking for another variance. So for this first variance here, we're strictly looking at number of signs.
And the restriction on the overlay is 1 sign.
And I will bring it up here. I just had it.
I
in
got
front
that
of me.
right?
I'll show it to you. It's appendix A. So, just so I can kind of show everyone where it is in the rule book here, this is the I-85 overlay. This is in the Carolina Gateway. And then the regulations within appendix A shall apply entirely to all non-residential uses. Gas station signage is not a residential usage. Then we'll go here to appendix A, signage standards. And signs that require a permit. So we're looking at 1 double facing Osage sign per parcel.
Okay. So do we have any questions from anyone? Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I'll be available for more questions if you have.
Surely, yeah, you'll have a chance to rebut if there's any comments, and we'll make sure you get any input that you want to.
I appreciate it.
Okay, before we ask for comments, I guess one thing I'd say is Adam's been very clear about what we're talking about, and specifically, we are not talking about whether or not we have a gas station there. That usage is allowed, and there's not an issue before us as to whether that should be a gas station, or traffic issues surrounding a gas station, anything like that. We're only talking specifically on this one about number of signs. Later, if we get further on the other variance requests, we'll talk about size and shape and whatnot of the other signs. But clear. Okay, so I have just, I think, one person signed up, Kenneth Jackson. Mr. Jackson.
Good evening, thanks for letting me talk. My name's Kenneth Terry Jackson, Jr., and I am a resident of Fairplay. I totally understand this is about signs. I do have a couple of questions that are around the property that I would propose should be something that you should at least consider in your discussions here, if you'd allow me a little bit of liberty for a second. If you feel I step out of bounds, please, I'm welcome to your comments. So the first is really, who owns the property? I mean, on the county records, Speedway doesn't own it. And so why would we be voting on something that Speedway doesn't own yet on a variance? So that would be my first question that I don't understand. And maybe a follow-up to that, again, on the county records, it says the classification of that property is residential. And so I mean, something we saw a minute ago said maybe residential wasn't applicable. So how does that factor into your decision, I guess, is my first couple of questions regarding that? Or how should it factor into your?
Really, you're able to give us input, we can't have a discussion with you,
Okay.
okay? That's kind of the way we operate. So you can raise those issues, and we'll be glad to talk to them, and I'm sure Mr. Chapman can help us clarify those, but we can't have a discourse on that.
Okay, so I would request that that be a consideration, because, if it is residential, if it stays residential, which means I guess a station could not show up there, why would the residents of Fairplay want a sign for something that's not even in their community at that point? It would be my own words, sign pollution, for of no value if there's no station there. So I would request, please, yeah, that'd be considered. And then secondly, would get to the property variance, I assume, or something would have to happen if a station were to be requested to go there. And it seems kind of like the cart's before the horse here. If we're voting on a sign variance and yet, you're voting, sorry, you're voting on a sign variance and yet, I don't know that A, the property's owned by Speedway yet, and B, that everything's been put in place to allow that business to start there. So again, why would a sign be voted on ahead of all that? And so and this would be my last comment, then taking that into account also, I would think maybe the best you could do, or I would suggest, would be maybe a conditional approval based on the other stuff happening so that the station could happen, so that you wouldn't end up again with a sign there all of a sudden and no business beyond it. Sign pollution in that area for really no supporting business. So at best, I would suggest maybe a conditional approval based on, I think, other things that still have to happen to make that Speedway station happen. And that would be my comments.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you. So, are you for or against the sign?
Candidly?
The issue here is the number of signs.
Right.
Are you for or against the number of signs on that property?
Candidly,
Sure.
I have no position one way or the other on the sign, and I trust you guys that completely on it. No position. It was just how that decision could impact the other stuff as I aired. But the signs themselves, to be honest with you, give you an answer.
I think Mr. Chapman can give us a hand on your questions there.
So
I appreciate it.
please consider that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I see other people in the audience. Anyone else have any comments? Certainly welcome your comments. Okay. Mr. Chapman, can you help us with the issue of ownership of the property and what impact that has on this proceeding? And also on, it does show as resident, the property shows as residential usage.
So
Okay,
certainly-
if you look on the county records, that's what it shows. If you could help us understand that.
Of course. So because we're government, we're gonna make things a little bit complicated for you all. Because one government office calls it one thing doesn't mean another government office calls it the same thing. That residential taxation is a tax designation. That is a taxation protocol. That doesn't speak to usage. So from land usage comes to planning and zoning, our side, what the tax man calls it may not necessarily be congruent with what you see on the ground. So from that side, it's residential. It may be tax residential, and once they change the usage, the taxation will get changed either at that moment in time or for the next tax year, just however the tax man likes to change that up. So the residential is a taxation, not a usage item. As far as ownership goes, as part of your backup material, I should have provided you with a letter from the owner who is under contract, and Mr. Cash and them can address that more, but As with many businesses, they like to do due diligence prior to formal purchase of a property. We have that happen a lot here. A lot of our communication towers, those are done prior to signing contracts. So, Mr. Dash has a letter, signed letter from the property owner in support of this.
Okay, and that's normal course of business. You gotta make sure you can do what you wanna do before you buy the property.
That is
That's
correct.
pretty what, that's, no. So, okay, and just to be clear, this is not zoned residential. That's, I think that's the issue that Mr. Jackson was raising. It's not zoned residential, it's just a taxation designation.
Correct. We have a couple things going on. The taxation designations, residential. The zoning's control-free, but it is within the I-85 overlay Carolina Gateway subdistrict.
Yeah,
So
the
we're not-
overlay is a zoning restriction, but it's not, each individual property within that is not zoned a particular way.
That is correct.
Okay, Mr. Cash, do you have any further comments?
Not unless you have any additional questions.
Do we have any questions of Mr. Cash? Okay, I'd entertain a motion on the, say, we have four criteria we need to consider. Typically, what we do is we ask for the first criteria, we ask for a motion in the affirmative. That just allows us to motion to approve, and second, and then allows us to discuss it. Doesn't mean that we're going to approve it or disapprove it, it just means that gets us into discussion. So that's kind of how we proceed. So, concerning this variance request, are there extraordinary, exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property? There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. Can I have a motion in the affirmative, please?
I would move that they are.
I have a second.
Second.
Discussion. What do y'all think?
I think it's already been brought up, the topography and the curvature it is. I mean, I might be jumping a little bit ahead, but I think certainly we don't want any kind of situation where you've got people up right on it trying to turn and slamming on brakes on I-85. We have enough of that already. So I agree that there's some extenuating circumstances that normally aren't encountered.
Any other comments? Glenn, have anything to say? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay, the second criteria. These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. I have a motion, please.
So moved.
Your second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Come on, guys, we owe it to these folks, we need to have a little discussion.
Well, we don't want it to be like Cracker Barrel where you get off the exit and have to hunt the place. So the more signs we can have that shows us where to go is going to make traffic flow better, for sure.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor of the motion? Aye?
Aye.
It's unanimous? Because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Can I have a motion?
I would say that's true. I move that,
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Dick, as it's been presented, if this isn't approved, there could be confusion to where the property is to be able to find it off of 85 as well as once you get off and on the exit. So I think that the rationale for having this variance makes sense.
I think without proper signage, I don't think you could have a viable business there.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor of approving this condition, say aye. Raise your hand, please. Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, the final question. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Can I have a motion, please?
I would move, so moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
I don't think he's asking for anything that's not common. I think everybody wants to be seen from the interstate if they're putting a business on the interstate. So it's just good business.
I agree it's good business. I agree particularly for a gas station such as this on the interstate. You need a big sign, you need a location sign, you need all that kind of thing for a gas station. My only concern is, and I'm surprised we haven't had any comments tonight, but my only concern is the people of Fairplay did put in this overlay, and it wasn't too long ago. And they specifically say, hey, we don't want big signs. We don't want a lot of signs. We want smaller signs. We don't want obtrusive signs to infringe on our community. And it was specifically, as I recall, it was specifically requested and worked through by the Fairplay community and approved by council in that regard. And overlays in general, my concern is we shouldn't arbitrarily violate overlays. As you know, I'm a strong believer in the lake overlay, and I'd be really upset to violate the lake overlay. And I guess that's my concern here, is the overlay was really put in place by the citizens of Fairplay because they didn't want a large number of signs, didn't want big signs, that kind of thing, so.
I think
Yes,
this,
I'd like to hear a little more comment about that.
I think this situation probably is different. If it were in the middle of Fairplay, it might be a different matter. If you go a few more feet north of this particular location, you're in Pickens County. I mean, we're right on the border of the next county even, and its effect on the people of Fairplay, I think, would be fairly minimal, if at all.
Mr. Chairman, as you stated, all we can do is to vote on the evidence that has been presented to us, and if there was a concern by Fairplay, they've had proper notice to
And they
adhere
should-
to that.
I'm surprised there isn't anyone here.
Right,
I'm
understood.
surprised at that. And I guess as I look at this intersection, it's got, the Loves has a huge sign out there already. There's a
Yeah.
Loves truck stop there, and there's another truck
I
stop.
think there's a Sunoco up there also.
There's a Sunoco there which does not have the large sign, or I don't know if it's got multiple signs, but we're considering multiple signs right now, but in general, certainly for the business to thrive, it needs signs. It needs, I think, multiple signs. We'd agree it needs multiple signs to
Multiple
thrive.
signs, and it needs excellent visibility for the safety of the.
Well, it would be different if the signs for the competition weren't already there. If it was like Hilton Head, where all the signs were less than 3 feet off the ground, and you had to drive past them 10 times to find the businesses. But all the other business up that corridor have these kind of signs. We're not starting something new by allowing this.
Someone has said it's right at the edge, the far extreme end of the overlay. It's not like it's downtown or
That's right.
along the kind of the rural, the road this extends along is a rural
Yeah,
area.
if you come in from the north, just as you start to approach the property, it says entering Oconee County, so you're right on the border.
Actually, the border is with Anderson County. It's
Oh, is it
Anderson
Anderson?
County. Just across I-85 is Anderson County, but same
Yeah.
difference.
I know it's a different county anyway.
Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? Discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Approved. Okay, so now we have approved the number of signs. We now have the second variance request is for application number VA-20-06B related to signage height located at 132 Grubbs Road, Fairplay, South Carolina, 29643, TMS number 341-0004-001.
Mr. Conner, if I may?
Yes.
So we kind of skipped over the last part, the chair of State Department based on the evidence.
Oh, I'm
presented.
sorry, I did.
I'm sorry.
Let me go back.
Yeah.
Let me scratch what I just said and let me go back and finalize the first variance. Based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved?
So moved.
Second.
All those, is there any discussion? Any overall discussion? No. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimously approved. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now we'll move to item 7, the second variance request. I'll go ahead and read it again. Variance request for application number VA-20-06B related to signage height located at 132 Grubbs Road, Fairplay, South Carolina, 29643. TMS number 341-0004-001. And it's to request a 190-foot vertical increase variance from the 10-foot height limit for a high-rise type sign. It wants to be 200 feet high. We would hear comments from the applicant, please. And I don't think it's necessary for you to say exactly the same stuff all over again. But
Right.
if you have anything that pertains to the height, that'd be fine, but you don't need to.
Well, I think we have covered a lot of that under the first time, but again, the high-rise sign is essential to understanding where the sign, where the business is going to be located at this interchange as you're traveling in north and southbound on I-85. Again, the sign study shows that even a 200-foot sign is just visible at about a half a mile out. So it's, even if the high-rise sign, you're not seeing it from miles away. You're only seeing within the last half mile before you get to the exit ramps. And that is, in my mind, is a minimum distance if someone make a decision to either change lanes, to exit onto the exit ramp, and then to decelerate as they do in a safe manner. Again, this is a very typical sign that is used throughout the country with Speedway as well as all their competition. So again, we're not asking for anything that's out of the ordinary, we just want the people to put the sign that is the brand sign that is utilized by Speedway, like I said, throughout the country. So, again, I'll take any questions.
Looking at your balloon study here, I don't see the Love's truck sign in there. The Love's sign, do you know how high it is, the Love's truck stop sign?
I don't know exactly height, I just know that when you compare our elevation to their elevation from a viewpoint of the highway, it's very similar.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's same number of feet or not, but it's very close in that same area. It's definitely over 10 feet high.
I guess I'm the official applicant. My name's David Dowker. I'm the planning project manager for Speedway. And if I can, I'm gonna get Adam to, we've got some pictures of the Love sign and the sign survey. We have these conducted for any kind of CFL convenience store that we propose in various jurisdictions.
Yeah, they're very useful. I like balloon studies.
Yes, and the purpose of this being is because, you know, as you all know, every jurisdiction's different. We can't just go in and say, oh, we want a 300-foot sign. You know, we're in our due diligence right now to make sure that, you know, what we're requesting is not, although it may be out of, you know, the county or the particular jurisdiction's ordinance, you know, it's something that, you know, in order for this business, like you all mentioned, to be viable, you know, we've got the Loves across the street and their sign, which is comparable, you know, to where that balloon is. Yeah, there you go. You can see the Love sign off here to the right.
Yep.
So you can see what we're requesting. Obviously, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I mean, looking at that, yes, it looks like it's going to be a little bit higher than the Loves. But the reason being is because you're only seeing it from this one particular direction. If you go to some of the other pictures that are on there, traveling southbound, I believe.
Yeah, down. Keep going. There you go.
There we go. You know, we try and get as many pictures as we can from different angles to kind of plead our case here. So, as you can see, I mean, you've got some visibility up top of the 175 and 150. We do those different increments to ultimately test out what the best option is going to be for us. And so, as you can see, out of all three of these pictures here, at least in the southbound direction, 200 feet would be at minimum, you know, what we would need in order for the business to be viable. And even at this, you know, it's still kind of hard to see, so we try and use these to help kind of give you a visual of, you know, why we're requesting this, and, you know, ultimately, like I said, you know, 200 feet, you know, helps with that direction. Obviously, northbound, you can see, oh, well, you can see it, you know, less than 200 feet. We're trying to get the best bang for our buck, and ultimately, you know, also, you know, we're concerned with the safety of, you know, drivers on I-85. We don't want somebody hitting the brakes, you know, and causing an accident. That's the last thing we want, so, just as a kind of wrap up to that.
But yes, thank you, sir. We do appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I've got a couple of questions.
Yes, by all means.
First off, anytime we do like with the tower studies, one of the things we look at is the fall, where the free range, where if it fell, if something happened, would it fall on someone else's property? Would it fall, you know, on a neighboring building or whatever? I assume that y'all have looked at this, if it's 200 feet, I don't know how, I know you've got right away from 85, obviously.
Right.
But what about the area around it? If it falls, if it's 200 feet tall, if it falls, is it going across the property line and hitting somebody else's property, or?
We own the 17 acres along the line. The location, I don't know if you have do you have the site, the sign plan I sent over on there? I think you do.
I don't have that sign plan, but
Okay. Well, I can kind of guesstimate it.
Actually, it should be on the sign survey too. We usually
Yeah.
have like an overhead of,
You have that?
should be at the very beginning. There you go.
There you go. Okay. You see the X? That's where, the one that's where the arrow pointing to, that's where we want to put it. And if a unit falls towards the highway, it's still a good 200 feet off of the side of the road. And our business is going to be located in the upper left-hand corner. So it's definitely way out of the way of 200 feet, as well as any neighboring property. So there would be no,
So you've got plenty of buffer
Yes, sir.
for if it was to collapse.
correct.
And I, also to add to that, I mean, you know, one of the, you know, steps in building this sign is obviously, you know, creating the correct foundation for it. So,
Sure.
you know, we take a lot of pride and make sure that we're, you know, being the safest and ultimately looking at all those factors. In fact, the vendor we have that does the sign surveys for us, they, you know, contract out an actual, I guess, foundation or a geotech specialist in order to make these foundations work and figure out, based on the topography, what's the makeup, and ultimately figure out what's the best, you know, in case of something were to fall, so.
And I realize geotechnical people, they'll take care of that. My biggest thing is, you
That's
know,
beyond my pay grade.
things still fall, you know.
And if it does,
Buildings
it's-
still fall and designs still fall. I just want to make
Question
sure
is, is it
that
going to
we
make a
work
noise
clear.
when it hits the ground with no one around?
Right, that's the biggest thing.
What is the design specification in terms of wind factor?
It's designed for, you know, the state requirements. I don't do signs for a design engineer, but I do know that everything has to be designed to the state code. State and federal highway as well.
I can verify that. It's just the same too for our building. We have to make sure that we're meeting all the requirements, you know, for the county, you know, and also environmental factors. So we have architects that look into that and make sure that we're building to that specification.
Thank you.
Whenever we're dealing with signs, there's always the question is, what's the elevation that the base of the sign goes off of? 190 feet on top of a mountain goes up a long ways. 190 feet from the bottom of a valley doesn't go up as far. Is the grade where you're planning to put the sign the same grade as the rest of your building site?
The elevation that we're asking for, the 200 feet, is based on a balloon that was placed on the ground at the point we want to place it. So that elevation is established from 200 feet from the point of ground of where we're putting it, not 200 feet just somewhere on the site. It's from that particular place at that particular elevation.
So you're looking
Does
at
that answer your question?
optimum visibility when you do the balloon test?
Correct, yeah, the balloon test, and that's ultimately gives you the visual, and that's what's based on a particular location at a particular elevation and 200 feet from that point up. So to your point, I would not move it up the hill,
Right.
then taking advantage of another 20 or 30-foot rise and put another 200 feet up there. That's not what would happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I could make just one comment, it was mentioned, Mr. McKee mentioned that we do a balloon test for our cell phone towers requests. And one thing we require there is that there's companies, maybe the company does your balloon test, they can superimpose on that. Like for us, they superimpose what the communication tower will look like. So when you're not looking at a balloon, you can see where the balloon was, but you see the actual impact of the tower. That might be something you could do with your sign studies also, is actually show the speedway sign where it's gonna be.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe you don't wanna do that, I'm just suggesting that in case you hadn't heard that.
Sure, yeah. I actually had conversations with our sign surveyor about doing that. I don't know that he particularly has that capability, but, we have the capability to, I think 200 feet is where the highest he can go up, and then I don't know that he has the particular software to do that, but.
I think it's a fairly straightforward thing to do. If you're interested, I know Mr. Chapman can help you with that, but I'm digressing.
Contract him to do.
Work stop with the other duty.
Okay, let me see, where are we? Any other questions for our applicant? Okay, thank you, we'll see if there's any citizen comments. I don't think I have anyone signed up for this particular request, but I will entertain, like Mr. Jackson, if you want to say something, or anyone else has something to say about the height of the sign. Okay, no citizen comments, I guess, Mr. Caston, you have no further comments to make? Okay, Mr. Chapman, you have any comments to make on all of this?
Okay.
What we're talking about?
No, sir. This for the height, just because there's a lot of them here. This height would be for one of the signs that you all have just approved. With the prior variance, you all approved 2 signs. This would be for one of them. This is not in addition to those 2 signs, just for the sake of clarity.
Also, point of information on height restrictions at fall zones. In our communication tower ordinance, it specifically states you've got to have a safe fall zone. How about signs like this? Is there any ordinance that, in our code of ordinances that requires a safe fall zone?
No, sir.
Okay, understand. Okay, let me see if I can get our first criteria then. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Could I have a motion in the affirmative, please?
So moved.
Second? Who's second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We all, just a little bit of comments, guys. Someone's got to say something.
Actually, when you look at these high-rise signs, when you're traveling, anybody that does a lot of traveling, like, for example, like, we do a lot on the interstates. And I'll tell you, we look for signs like that, particularly ones that have the pricing on it, so that you can make a decision on whether you want to get on or get off of the exit to, and the other thing is, you don't want to get, when you're traveling and you're on a timeline, you don't want to have to get off to the exit guessing on a gas station and find out it's 3 or 4 miles down the road, and then have to turn around and go back because you don't want to waste the time doing it. So I think from a practical standpoint, this particular type of a sign is ideal for that type of business, and it's something we should be encouraging rather than discouraging. I think it's a benefit to everybody involved.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye, please. Raise your hand. Unanimous in approval? Criteria number 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I think,
I don't want to belabor the subject, I'm just trying to.
I think
make sure
we've hashed it over enough to proceed without further comment.
All in favor, please say aye. It's unanimous. Because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property.
Yeah, so moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion, please.
I think if you don't have a large enough sign for recognition of the particular gas station, I don't think that it's gonna be a viable business, and I don't think it would be worth building one in that particular location if you couldn't have proper signage.
Any other comments? All in favor, please, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Finally, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
As already discussed, there's other properties and businesses at that same intersection that have similar signs, so it certainly isn't gonna be anything more detriment than what's there already, and it's consistent with what's there already, so.
As it was mentioned before, it's really away from the down, I hate to say downtown area, but it's away from the commerce area. And it's not like it's down right at Yoder's or anything.
Also, when you look at the property that's adjacent to it, this is gonna be a major improvement over that.
Property that's adjacent.
Adjacent to the property they're gonna build on.
Okay.
I think there's an abandoned house or something in there, or at least appears to be, with a bunch of junk cars around it.
Yeah, and again, my only concern is that Fair Play did put in this overlay specifically to restrict signs. I think we've covered the idea that, yeah, but this is a special situation, and especially for me, given there is no opposition here from Fair Play to present their case as something that they just don't want, I think I would vote in favor. So are there any other comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
We have unanimous, Adam? Based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. It's unanimous, Adam. Okay. The next, item 8, variance request for application number VA-20-06C related to signage sign face area located at 132 Grubbs Road, Fair Play, South Carolina, 29643, TMS number 34100404001. A 552 square foot increase variance from the 75 square foot limit for sign faces on the high-rise type sign. Just a minor increase.
So this is the one facing the interstate, not the one in front of the business.
Yes.
This would be the high rise.
So, Mr. Cash, would you please, anything you want to add to what you've already said?
Well, I mean, the
It's
obvious
a
one
big
is that
sign.
once you make the sign that high, and to be able to read it from a distance, you need letters and such to be at a size that you can actually read them from that distance. So this is just a one goes along with the other to make this sign a reasonable sign. Obviously, a 72 square foot sign on top of 200 feet wouldn't be seen, I know, from anywhere. But like you said, if you want to read and see what the prices are, they're there, as well as the Speedway logo. And again, these are the typical brand that you'll see anywhere along the country for a Speedway type of operation.
Okay. Any questions, folks? Okay, any comment, anyone want to make comments? I have no one signed up, but again, I see folks out there. If you have anything to say about the size of the sign, please step forward. Okay, seeing no comments, I will proceed to consider. The first criteria, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Don't be shy on seconds, guys. Any discussion? On the size of one sign.
It's already been mentioned, I mean, if you don't increase it, you're not gonna see it.
The only thing I could say is that as I get older, I keep looking for bigger and bigger signs.
So noted. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, Adam? Okay, let me see, where am I here? Criteria number 3. Because of these conditions, the application of this chapter of the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion beyond what we've already said? I understand we're
Pretty much
here,
actually,
but
yeah.
It's, yeah, without the signage and a visible sign from the road, that there just wouldn't be a viable business. I know we said it before, but it's a fact of the matter. And I don't think it'd be practical to build a gas station there if they can't get the proper signage.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And raise your hand. It's unanimous, Adam.
If I may, did we skip number 2? These conditions do not generally apply to other property?
Help me here, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we did.
We did, okay, I think it's perfectly okay to go back and take them out of sequence. These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Motion, please.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I think this is a unique piece of property, and it's, unless somebody else is gonna try to build another gas station somewhere in that particular area, I think this would be a standalone situation.
The only problem I have with the wording of that is the fact that there is another piece of property that's got the exact same thing. So it's not like that this is a unique thing to this site, because you've got the Love Truck Stop same way with their big sign up. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, I don't like the wording, but I think that's what we have to go by, but.
I understand, yes, I think that's accurate. Okay, any other discussion, folks? All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Chapman, for catching me on that. Appreciate it. Criteria number 4. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, please.
And again, like we've said already, this really isn't anything different than what's being there at that intersection already. It's just a continuance of that, so it shouldn't be any additional detriment at all to the surrounding community.
Any other comments? All in favor, please say aye. It's unanimous, Adam. Based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Everybody can see. Unanimous. Okay, the final variance request is for application number VA-20-06D, related to signage height located at 132 Grubbs Road, Fairplay, South Carolina, 29643, TMS number 341-00-04-001. This is on the smaller goalpost sign, a 10-foot vertical increase variance from the 10-foot height limit for a goalpost type sign. You want to go from 10 feet to 20 feet. So, Mr. Cash, would you like to say something about this particular request?
This is a sign that is placed at the entranceway to the property. So again, someone who comes off the exit ramp and is looking in that direction can actively see not only the location of the property, but also can again see what the prices are for the types of fuel that's available. And again, the logo is a brand that we're trying to represent to the community. So, and this again is one of the smallest goalposts that they do have. And this is a very typical sign that's used again throughout the country, as well as not only with us, but you can see right across the street that they have goalposts that are very similar. This is a very, very typical way of displaying this type of business and presenting the type of information that's necessary. I take any questions?
You don't have questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, Mr. Cash.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the audience? Again, I encourage anyone who wants to say something, please step forward. Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to consider. Criteria number 1, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. I have a motion, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The thing that makes this property extraordinary is the trees, the location on the interstate, and the, I guess, danger of not having adequate signage of what safety factors they might have on it, not without proper signage.
Yeah, the fact that it's so far from the interstate itself, when you get off the exits, you need something that's reasonably sized.
And it's all shielded with a lot of vegetation too. I mean, it's surrounded almost, with the exception of out on the road, Whitfield Road or whatever it is.
Any other comments? Marty, you have anything to say?
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, Mr. Secretary. Second criteria, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, please. Okay. Same thing kind of applies to your comment here, Marty, but
Yeah.
I don't know how we deal with that.
And I mean, I guess the intent is not everybody's gonna have a 20-foot sign in their yard. So it is a little different.
I think if it wasn't a service station.
Yeah, if it wasn't a service station, you probably wouldn't need a 20-foot sign.
So that's why it's unique, is because the use of the space is what it is, so to have this.
Yeah, it really applies to this location and the use of this location. If you look further away on the overlay, maybe entirely different decision made.
Also, the makeup of the sign with, with the various prices are really pertinent to this particular type of a business.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. Any, could I have a show of hands, please? Unanimous, Adam, in favor. Because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, please. Don't mean to belabor the subject.
No, I don't
guys.
think, I think we can proceed. I think we've covered it well enough at this point.
Anyone else have anything to say? All in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. It's unanimous, Mr. Secretary. Number 4, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think we've covered it.
I think we've covered, my comments again pertain to the utility of an overlay, but we haven't heard any comments from the public against this particular use of the overlay, so That sways my opinion. Have a vote, please. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved? Have a motion,
So,
please.
so moved.
I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. We all see. Unanimous again. Let me see. Did I just do the following, the summary one?
Yes.
I'm reading too much stuff here, guys. Mr. Cash, congratulations.
Thank you.
Think,
It's been a pleasure working with you.
Mr. Chapman will take care of the paperwork, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Great evening. I guess I have just one other comment to make for the board. We are missing a longtime at-large member, Mr. Morgan. To my knowledge, a replacement has placed his name into nomination, and I'm hopeful we'll make the agenda. It will be considered by council next week. Have you seen the agenda for council yet?
Nope, I have not. I don't believe it's posted yet.
Not posted yet? This gentleman assured me he was going to put his application in, so we should be at full party. Excuse me, we'll be up to six parties. Still don't know of anyone who has applied for District 6. Mr. Morgan was an at-large member. Mr. Morgan was at-large.
Oh, you said District 6, I was just,
Okay.
We don't have a District 6.
5, pardon me. District 5. So, if anyone knows someone in District 5 who would like to serve, we need to figure that out. Okay, do I have a motion to approve, to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?